Welcome to Discover Ergo, the place where we cover the Ergo ecosystem as well as the Cardano ecosystem and other Web3 technologies. Today we're going to talk about the cypherpunk movement, why it was important, why it's still important, why it's going to be important in the future, and how it relates to Ergo briefly. The cypherpunk movement was basically people in the early 90s who saw the rise of of these technologies such as computers and the emergence of the internet, and they saw the opportunities and how it can connect people, but they also saw some of the downsides. And they were advocates for privacy. They stressed privacy as a fundamental human right in the digital era. They were influential on technologies. They influenced the development of blockchain and cryptocurrencies. They supported decentralized technologies. Decentralization is pretty important for robustness. As we go forward, and we have a more digital economy, underneath that you're gonna have to have more security, or else you can have more hacks. But robustness in terms of it not being co-opted by a few people as well. The cypherpunks were also interested in resistance to control. They opposed the government and corporate control over personal data and communication. So, they were, they were libertarians. This is a cypherpunk. This is Jude Millen. She coined the term cypherpunk. And to read a quote, hacking is a clever circumvention of imposed limits, whether imposed by your government, your IP server, your own personality, or the laws of physics. The ethos behind this itself is you don't have to wait for the government. You don't have to wait for social change. You can take these tools, these technologies, and build a philosophy and the ideas within them themselves, which is a key point of this. Notable key figures was Timothy May, who wrote the Crypto Anarchist Manifesto, Eric Hughes, who wrote CypherPunk's Manifesto, Julian Assange, one of the most famous people because of WikiLeaks. People probably don't know he was part of the cypherpunk community, but I think they see him in the news quite a bit because of his run-ins with the government itself. Hal Finney, a renowned cryptographer. Hal Finney was a key contributor to several cryptographic protocols and was one of the first to respond to and support Satoshi Nakamoto and the creation of Bitcoin. Quite a prominent figure within the crypto space. It wasn't just the ideas, it was the technology as well. PGP, also known as pretty good privacy, is secure encryption for communication. PGP is not just within crypto itself, it's within the apps we use. So, some of these ideas that came from this space are things that we use in our everyday life. Anonymous browsing. When it comes to browsers like Tor, it gives people the ability to share things peer-to-peer, and within some countries where access to knowledge is prohibited, it can be very useful for people to get access to them. On the flip side, very nefarious things can happen with these systems and darknet as well, which is just a reality. But I think what's interesting is where the cypherpunks fall ethically. What they tend to choose is basically freedom at the expense of safety, because they think, well, essentially, safety might just be kind of like a compromise that's just too much. So another milestone was Bitcoin's decentralization. Bitcoin, when it was first introduced into the world in 2008, was a very niche idea, and it's grown all the way from this niche idea, something that was quite libertarian, and that was that was quite opposed to the traditional financial system. In 2023, going into 2024, the interesting thing about Bitcoin is it's being commoditized and financialized by the traditional system. Some people see it as a Trojan horse for it to get control, Some people think it's being co-opted, or at least that some of the principles have been watered down. So, the impacts of the cypherpunk movement, and actually going into the crypto movement itself. Within the cypherpunk movement, yeah, these types of protocols have given people, I guess, the ability to be able to communicate, in privacy. But going into the crypto aspect now, it also gives people economic freedom in countries where your money is being devalued, as one of the most obvious examples. And the step beyond that is smart contracts. And to give you an example, decentralized autonomous organizations. With DAOs, we can be able to organize and come to consensus to achieve things that traditionally we might have needed governments or businesses, and sometimes they weren't even capable to do it, because we might find out new novel ways of doing things. But that's a long way off, and it still has to be battle tested. Currently, right now, in terms of the principles, if we go through the through line to see where we're at, Ergo embodies some of the cypherpunk principles. It even has a manifesto, and it's thought quite carefully in terms of the architecture, in terms of the long term, to make sure it keeps some of these core principles, such as decentralization. One example that demonstrates this is what is it? Is Ergo Mixer itself. Ergo Mixer is built into the protocol. To be able to use it, you do have to go through a few steps, but most of the time these mixers are kind of tacked onto the protocol afterwards, which means that there's more steps for the user, or it's harder for it to be built, to be built. But this was a solution that was quite thoughtful. So, going into the future, some countries like China have digital currencies which are linked to your ID, and if you do things that the government doesn't like or is against policy, then you can basically lose financial access to things, and it can be weaponized and it can be used against you. You can have the loss of free markets if we have systems that are too centralized as well. If you don't have free markets, then whoever sells you that one product can sell you at any price, because it's a monopoly. Now, the real important thing to take away from this is decentralization is actually a movement, okay? And there's things that can be done. It does require of people to actually do work itself. And it's not just about speculation. There's a bit of a joke within the crypto space that came for the gains, stayed for the philosophy. Usually people say that because they've lost their gains. But the thing is, there's things that can be done. There's communities that you can get involved in. There's infrastructure that you can run. And if and if you don't want to do that, there's things you can just learn, because these tools you don't have to get financially invested in, but as we go forward, they'll just give you access to other things as well. So community and education are going to be very, very key. Now, essentially, you can have permissionless inclusion in a financial system in the future where access was restricted, and that's a very practical thing. So it's not just the big picture, but also in our own lives, when we're able to access more of these financial tools, it can make life a lot easier, especially in countries where they don't have bank accounts. But over here in the West, the type of access we have is good, but it's not always a level playing field. That's all I'm going to say for this video. Thank you very much for listening. The next one's going to be quite different. It's just going to be lighter, but I thought it was important to touch base with the ideas and the ethos of the cypherpunk movement, because as we go forward, it's easy to forget what's important, and I think in the long term, the protocols which are going to stand the test of time are probably going to have these principles, embedded within the technology themselves. And it's the point why we're here as well, essentially. Well, thank you very much for listening.